All right, guys, welcome back. This, for the first time ever, is officially the iCoach podcast. Guys, this time I have a very special guest as we kind of transition into a little bit more of the entrepreneurial realm. Miss Natalie Bacon, how are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Justin. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. I'm excited to really just dive into your brain. I obviously met you through my wife, and you are basically your mom and her mom were like best friends like growing up. Am I right on that?
Yeah. So my mom and your mother-in-law grew up together, like childhood friends. So I have known your wife's mom for my entire life. And that's, I guess, how I met you is through just connecting more with Lisa and then Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's so funny is she told me a little bit about you, and then we like met that one time, and then I kind of just like creeped on your Instagram and kept kind of like diving in and following more. But I probably can't tell the story and do it justice. So like, tell the viewers, tell the listeners, like just a little bit more about like you and who you are, and like you have a really, really cool story. So like, I'd love to be able to kind of dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always wanted to be a lawyer, like always. Big education family, like my brother is a surgeon. It's just like go to school, go to more school. So I'm not one of those entrepreneurs who like grew up selling lemonade, hustling, thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur. And I think that's what makes my story so unique is because I am now a full-time entrepreneur and I'm obsessed with it, but it wasn't always that way. So I was always going to be a lawyer. So I became a lawyer, graduated, realized I had like massive student loan debt and I should probably learn about money. So then I started like reading the typical personal finance books, listening to the podcasts about money. And I have always loved personal development. I have like a philosophy minor. And so I would also listen to personal development podcasts as well and read those books. So I decided to start a blog about my debt and kind of just to help other women with money. And I figured there would be other people like me out there, but I didn't even read blogs. I have no idea why I decided to start one. I just did while I was practicing as an attorney. And I quickly found out that bloggers can make money and people can make money online. So while I was practicing as an attorney, I kind of started to make a little money on the side, whether it's like freelance writing or with display ads on my site or just kind of dabbling like a few $1,000s my first year. And then I really started to go all in with it as time progressed. And I quit my job as an attorney and became a financial planner. I thought that because I was really feeling good about like my finance blog, that I wanted to help people with their money. That was kind of like the next phase of my career. I was at like a big corporate law firm, not feeling like I was serving the world. So I became a financial planner. I got my certification as a certified financial planner, worked at a registered investment advisory firm that managed $1 billion of assets under management. So basically I was an advisor to really, really wealthy people. Super cool because I learned a ton about money, but I realized I was kind of on the wrong side of the table. Like I learned how to manage money. It's a great life skill, but I really loved making a lot of money and I loved business. So I just dove headfirst into entrepreneurship, a lot of like mindset stuff. I ended up getting certified as a life coach, and now I really teach a lot of mindset, personal development, and online business, which is like totally my passion. And I've been doing it full time. I'm obsessed with it, really.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, congratulations first off, because I know how, scary the jump is, and like really just like this whole journey. And like, I mean, I'm a rookie entrepreneur. I mean, I'm coming up to like a year, but I feel like I've been kind of like the entrepreneur all the way up to this point, kind of being in the field, like as a personal trainer, it's kind of like you have your own business, but you don't. And then like as a coach, like I kind of had my own business, but I didn't. And then I finally like really took the leap. And so I want to really dive into like that part of like the mindset piece, because I mean, look, like I was just like I had like a degree, like a nutrition degree. Like, I mean, you were a lawyer. Like, I mean, we put lawyers up on this like pedestal. I mean, and rightfully so. Like, that's a lot of time that was invested to become that. So walk me through like a little bit of kind of like the psychological part of like first off, with like your parents, because I would love to dive into that. And then, yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I've always, like I said, liked personal development. So I was always kind of thinking bigger picture. I was never just kind of like in the day to day. And what I realized as an attorney was that it was going to continue and probably get worse. So as an attorney at a big law firm, there's no kind of point where you arrive and you work less but make more money. So you work those 80-hour work weeks and you make a ton of money, and then that just like continues forever. And there's until you retire. There's no point where you really get work-life balance. I would have had to work for the government or public sector, and I'm like so ambitious that didn't really fit with me. Definitely for like volunteering, but not for my day-to-day job. And so I really struggled with how to be a lawyer and then how to have like the life I wanted. And I tried to get another job at a different law firm. I thought switching from like corporate litigation to business would help, and it didn't. And I hated that job so much that I felt like it just got so bad that I really wanted to switch to be a financial planner, because I thought that is like a normal 40-hour work week. I can have good work-life balance. I'll feel like I'm helping people manage their money. Like I like learning about money. So the transition first went from lawyer to financial planner. My family they were supportive. They didn't like really understand it. Like I swear to God, my mom still introduces me as a lawyer. It's fine. Like I'm pretty sure my grandma thinks I'm like in a cult. Like she's like really skeptical of like the whole thing. Like she asks me all the time if I can go back to being a lawyer if like I wanted to. But I've never, like ever since I was little, my parents have always really told me like I can do and be anything I want. And so I've never really felt like I needed their validation to make these moves, like thankfully, right? Because they're not entrepreneurs. So when you try to explain to the people you love that like you want to do something like this, they're not going to get it. And I was really, really intentional about making sure that I sought out people who had the results I want. So when I was going from lawyer to financial planner, I talked with several people who were financial planners in like the role that I was going to be in to make sure that this would make sense for me. Like I wasn't really going to my parents and family asking them if I should do this because they don't have that result. They're not living that life. And then the same is true from when I went from financial planner to full-time entrepreneur. I will say that I still felt enormous fear. I was terrified, but like I'm a big believer in you make the decision when you are thinking through like rationally and not in the moment of like your emotions, and you really weigh the pros and cons. And once you make that decision, you move forward even if you feel the fear. So like going in and quitting, I was terrified. I was like, holy crap, like what is, but I knew I'd already made that decision. I knew like I talked to all the right people. I knew that it was the right choice for me. I knew like, I just thought about it rationally. I'm an employable human. I can always get another job. Like I really wanted to do this. So I was terrified and I felt fear and I did it anyways. And like my only regret is not doing it sooner, really. And like I said, I didn't really go to my parents or family and ask them if I should do the online entrepreneur full time. I went to the people who were really successful entrepreneurs and talked to them. I went to conferences and I talked to people who were doing it, and they were like, why are you still working full time? Like, I'm telling you, there is something so powerful about getting around people who have the results you want. It's like infectious because that's the direction you're going in. And I truly believe that is why I've been able to like, take risks or make, intelligent decisions, because I'm really focused on listening to my mentors, I guess, instead of just the people who love me.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think like, that's so powerful. And you made so many good points along the way I want to touch on just on that. But one thing you had mentioned even earlier before that was like, those 3 words, which I love, like go all in, and whatever that is. And so like, I think back, like obviously when I made the decision to go all in, 2 months later, like we found out that like Alex, my wife, was pregnant and like we were going to have our first child. And so like other than the investment that I made in terms of working with a mentor, I also had now another motivator as to like a kid on the way. And so I think when your back's up against the wall and like you really have to like go all in order to make, or to get through it, to overcome like whatever it is, like you're going to work, like that's just like human nature. So I think that's so incredibly powerful. And like, I love that statement that you said, like go all in.
Something I teach in one of my courses, a personal development course, is like, just don't dabble. Whatever you do, dabbling is like the kiss of death for success. Like you can change course, right? You can choose one thing, but go all in. And then you know what, if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out and you go all in on something else. But if you just live like with all this balance and all this like mediocre and you're just kind of like half, doing everything, you will not be successful. And everything I've been successful at has been just from going all in. And I think that when you are that committed, you will make it happen and things come up. And I always think like, oh, this is going to make a good story. Like, Alex being pregnant, like think 5 years from now, that's just going to be an incredible story. As an entrepreneur, I'm always thinking like, what's the story? And I just love your story is like already amazing. And that's just adding to it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and what's so funny is like, I was so afraid and like scared to like tell my story for so long. And like, I never told it for like 8 years of me being in the field, because in my head, I was like, oh, like people are going to look like clients are going to look down on me because of like this. And like, but really it was like, no, like once I finally shared my story, like it just made even more people want to work with me, because like I was vulnerable and I was transparent and like I was able to just kind of I don't know, just kind of identify with like the struggle, right? And being able to overcome struggle, like empathize with people. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think there's like that resistance, and then it's like, how do you craft the story and what's the story you're telling, right? There's so many different ways to tell stories, but I think that you're spot on. And I think it's like, it's courageous of you. I think it's amazing. And that's what I try to do with my brand as well, is share the story, because I think that's what people connect with.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I mean, I completely agree. So here's a question, like, what about for the people, because I'm sure you have this with clients that you work with, that they're like, well, like maybe they hear a story, and not to say my story is like, awesome or anything like that, but like it is my story. And some people will compare it to that and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't have anything that happened to me like that. Like, I don't really have a story. Like, how do you start to dig into and help, this is for the entrepreneurs out there that are like on social media and trying to build their online coaching business. Like, how do you get them to really kind of dive in and, start to identify, okay, what's the story and like, how am I going to start to tell it?
I think you have to start thinking about your life differently. And right, you might not have some big event that is, like the student loan debt or your story, that's going to be like the obvious thing, but that doesn't mean you don't have a story. It can be something really small. Or if you don't know what it is yet, you can start to think about different choices you can make in the future to create a story. Like if it's a fitness something, you can do something crazy. Like, I don't know, who's the fitness guy who gained a bunch of weight? Okay, yeah. So like that wasn't, go ahead. What is it?
Fit to fat to fit.
Yeah. Okay. So Russell Brunson, the marketer, talks about him, right? It's like, that wasn't his story from the past. He created that. And now that's like a story. Like, I don't even know who it is and I know the story, right? So if you don't necessarily have a story that you can pull from to include in your business, I think story is so powerful that you should start to think about your life and the decisions you're making to kind of make choices so you can create a story in the future. Intelligently, of course, not doing crazy things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's super powerful. I mean, I always ask the question to myself, like, like who am I and like, who do I need to become or who do I want to become? And so like, you can kind of start to formulate, like, I hear the question all the time. People are like, well, I just like, I don't like, maybe they'll set a goal and then they don't really like believe in the goal. Yeah. And like, I tell people, I'm like, look, like, I mean, sometimes it's not going to be like black and white to where like you just 150% believe in the goal. Like, like sometimes like you have to almost like, I don't know, like fool yourself or kind of lie to yourself in a sense, or like those daily mantras, right? Like just telling yourself that every single day. And the more you say it and the more you write it and the more you see it, the more you start to believe it. So yeah, I think it's super powerful.
I totally agree with all of that. And I think it depends at what level goal you're talking about, right? Are we talking about like a 1 year goal? And what helps me if it's shorter term goals is to think about like the vision of where I'm going and just to make sure that's all in alignment, right? So if I want to, I got my business to 6 figures, I like quadrupled my income in the last year. And now I'm like, okay, I want to get to 7 figures, but making sure that those mini goals kind of align there. And if, like you said, if it's not aligned or if something's off, like, okay, well, maybe I need to pick up a new goal, but just making sure that it aligns with like that overall vision of where I want to go with my business long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one thing we do kind of like in our mentorship, like, or my mentor kind of has our group do is and this is from like Garrett White, he kind of created like the 4 pillars of like body, being, balance, and business. And so we'll create, goals in each one of those categories for the year and then kind of reverse engineer it into those quarterly goals.
I love that. I'm all about reverse engineering things. Like from a business entrepreneurial perspective, it's like you have to start from the end goal or end vision or whatever and work backwards. Like that is the secret to a lot of things in business.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I kind of, briefly touched on that. Like, could you maybe touch on like maybe just kind of a general overview of like maybe how you went about like setting goals for yourself? Like, so you obviously like your goals have changed, throughout the years in your life, and like what have you learned kind of through that process of goal setting? Because I know myself, like back when I was, 15 years old, writing out my goals for the year was a lot different than what it is now. You know what I mean?
So what's been super fun for me is I use all these different task managers, whether it's like Asana or Evernote, but I'll have like the year and I'll write down the goals for that year. And it's been super fun to look back. Like my goals from 2013 and 14 are so different than what they are now. And I think that's so fascinating. What I've learned is that I stay pretty attached to my goals for that year and I make sure they're in line with my vision for like 5 years out. But what I find is that in that year, I might accomplish them or something happens or whatever, and things change, and that's okay. Then I create like a new goal, and then I adjust. So 5, 6, 7 years ago, there is no way my goal would have been, quit my job and run a business full time, like no way. But a year and a half ago, that was absolutely my goal. So I think having goals is really useful because it gives your brain something to like focus on at the most like basic level. And I really like setting really big goals, but I'm also okay if I don't achieve them. So that doesn't mean I'm not committed, but it just means like I don't make failure mean anything. So I'm very like vocal about wanting to get to 7 figures in my business. I know I will. I don't know if it'll be this year or next year or the year after, but let's just say I want it to be in a year. And I don't hit it. Like, I don't make that mean anything. So if someone was like, oh, did you hit 7 figures? I'd be like, oh, no, but I will next year. Like, I'm not nervous about announcing it or anything like that because I don't make failure mean anything. And I think that that's kind of been one of my secrets to success is that I'm really always just learning from any obstacle that comes up and like committed to the end result that I want and being okay with changing it, right? So 6 years ago, maybe the end result that I wanted was I don't even remember, like to work at a better law firm or a different financial planning job or something like that. Well, I wasn't, I changed that as soon as the vision changed. As soon as I learned that all these people were making butt tons of money online, that sounds awesome. Then I changed the vision and now I'm like, okay, now my mentor makes millions of dollars working 3 days a week. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, let's do that. So now that's my vision and I make sure that my goals are aligned with that. And then I'm pretty ruthless about planning and productivity to make sure I'm just learning from the people who have the results I want and like saying yes to opportunities that only make sense with kind of where I'm going. So I don't get spread too thin with things that don't make sense for where I want to go.
Man, so many great takeaways. I hope everybody's taking notes here, by the way. That's really good. I love that. I think I couldn't agree more. And I think, as you were saying all that, I thought to myself, as I was looking back and reflecting on my goals for 2018, I actually didn't have anything in there about owning my own business.
See?
So what's so crazy is like that switch happened like so fast. And so it just goes to show, it's like, you never know, like life is amazing. Like you never know like what's going to happen. And like, I think just being able to kind of like chase like fulfillment in life. And like, for me, that's like helping other people. And I mean, I'm sure for you, like that brings so much value to you as well. Like I think about like the mentorship clients that we work with. And like, for me, it's like, I love just being able to help them like build kind of like you, like the life of their dreams, because they can work remotely. They can travel and live wherever they want. And like, that's an amazing thing here in like 2019, you know?
Yeah, I seriously, just to echo that, like I feel so lucky every single day. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, and when you really understand business, it's really not about the money. That's kind of like a report card, right? When you're a real entrepreneur, you're so committed to serving your people. It's like, I literally get so much joy from helping people and serving them and helping them create their dreams and motivating them. Like that is my purpose. It's like, if I can help you like make money online or grow as a person, like I feel like I am like living on purpose, and there's like no better feeling than that.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, obviously like you're an amazing human being. And so I want to dive into like, who's like kind of mentored you and kind of shaped you into the person you are today?
Yeah. So with being an entrepreneur, I remember when I first heard this and I didn't really get it, but now I do. And it was like, what gets you to making like $500 a month isn't going to be what gets you to 1,000, isn't going to be what gets you to 5,000, isn't going to be what gets you to 10,000 and or 1,000,000, right? And I remember hearing that and thinking like, I didn't really get it, and now I get it. So I feel like I'm constantly a beginner and a student, but I also think that has served me so well. So like in the beginning of my journey, I was listening to a lot of people like the personal finance people, like not even entrepreneurs, like Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey and those kinds of people, and reading their books. And then I would listen to, do you know who Andrew Farabee is from the Knowledge for Men podcast? I don't even know if he does the podcast anymore, but it's a personal development podcast. It was like, I don't know what got me hooked on it, but it is Knowledge for Men. And I would just listen to the motivational ones. And I remember he would have people on there who were entrepreneurs who talked about money in a very different way than the personal finance people did. So that was like my first taste, was just through people on podcasts and reading books. And then once I started to take it more seriously, I would go to conferences. And I really think that just filling my mind with other people's ideas and thoughts really helped me. Like I didn't need that one-on-one mentorship. Every morning, we were talking about before we jumped on today, that like you put on a podcast. That's what I do. It's like, you don't have to have access to people. You literally just have to have a phone that you can turn on, and you will fill your mind with like ideas that you didn't like even know. Like no one in my family is really an entrepreneur. This is all self-taught. So I'm so grateful that we live in the time that we do, because I just started binging on personal development and business podcasts. And then I would say, like, when I really started to take it seriously the last couple of years, it's kind of like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I did a course called Six Figure Blogger, and that got my income up. In 2017, I did, and like, so personal finance bloggers share their income. That's just like a thing. I think I'll stop in the future, but so if this is weird to your audience, but I don't know. But so it's end of 2017, I made like 45K from my business, and that was while working full time. I took Six Figure Blogger, and I learned from Alex and Lauren, who are now friends. And then I did everything in their course. And I'm a big believer, like, take one, implement one. So you take one course and you implement everything, or you take one coaching program and you implement everything. Like, they know something you don't, right? So I did that with Six Figure Blogger. I quadrupled my income. So at the end of 2018, it was almost 179K. So that was like huge for me, right? And I went full time. And now, so I'm not like done with them, right? But like I've outgrown their programs. So now they're more like friends to me. I still think of them as mentors, but I'm not like students of theirs right now. So now I went through this life coach program, and my mentor is Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School, and her business God, I think last year she did 17 million, which is insane. So I'm going through, I did her coaching program, but now this whole year I do an entrepreneur program. And that's, I think I will scale up to 7 figures with her as my main mentor.
Wow. That's amazing. I think back, this was back when I was like a personal trainer at 24 Hour Fitness, and I started training a guy, his wife, but it was a guy that was extremely successful entrepreneur, like multimillionaire, had started and like had a lot of success with multiple companies. And anyways, once I found all this out, obviously I asked him, I was like, hey, is there anything, they actually took me and my wife to dinner one night. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, what advice, would you give for like a young kid like me? I was, 19 years old at the time. And he goes, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to email you a list of books. I'm going to email you a list of 50 books or so. And I was like, okay, cool. And he emailed me that list. And that night I bought all 50 of them.
I love it.
The next day I saw him at the gym and I said, okay, I bought them. And he was like, you bought all of them? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I mean, you're super successful. You told me if I bought these 50 books, I could be successful too. And so that's how it all kind of started. And once I started reading these books, because I was somebody that really, really struggled with school. I have dyslexia, I have ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it. Alex can read probably 3 books in the time that I can read 1 book. But halfway through college, I learned that if I recorded my lectures and I just listened to them, I retained everything. And so that then led me to realize that I could read these books, these physical books, but it took me forever. But I really wanted to learn. And so I started listening to audiobooks, and then now mostly podcasts. And it's literally completely changed my life over the last almost 10 years,
That's amazing. And I really just want to point out something in that story. So the skill set that you have, the character trait that you have is that you're actually doing it. I cannot tell you how many people I give book recommendations to or whatever, they don't do it. And that's a mindset thing, right? So you have your mindset in check, right? You might not have been the best reader or student or whatever, but he gave you a list of books and then you bought the books. That's amazing. Most people just don't do it. They just don't do it. And I think, and of course you could say oh, I'm a lawyer, but I'm actually a B+ student, and I have to work so freaking hard. I failed the certified financial planner exam the first time I took it. I had to take it again. I have to work really, really hard to do well, but I'll just do it, right? So if there's anything out of that story that I love the most, it's you are so interested in learning and making it happen that you'll do it. You'll do whatever it takes. And I think that's so admirable.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that thinking back, for you, I think if you would have been that easy A+ student, you wouldn't be an entrepreneur right now. Because you were used to always working really, really hard. That's why you're able to do this now. So
you're right.
One thing I wanted to touch on kind of as we kind of transition here into mentorship, because obviously you and I kind of have both worked with mentors, and something that comes up all the time that's interesting to me is that when you make that investment, that big scary investment that makes you want to throw up for a week, you're really just kind of paying to play, right? A lot of people, whether it's hiring a nutrition coach or hiring a business mentor, sometimes they think, oh, well, I made the investment, so now everything's just gonna magically happen. And the reality of it is, it's you're just paying to play, and you really now have to go all in and really put in the work.
Yeah. So there's a marketer, Ryan Dice, and he talks about how it's you can plant the seed and watch the rice grow and make it happen, or you can go to the grocery store and buy the rice, right? It's you have to either put in a lot of time and do it all on your own, or you can do it a lot faster with money. And there's a certain point that even if you start it all on your own and you're doing it very from the ground up with no money. And I didn't really invest a lot in the beginning, but you do have to invest in yourself. Like you really do. But like you have to make sure that you are doing the second part of that, which is actually following through and taking the action. I love learning, and it's very easy to get consumed by that. And I call it passive action. So passive action is where you're just consuming, right? You're taking the courses and it feels like you're doing something, but you're actually not producing anything. So I have like a constraint in my life where it's like learn one, implement one. So you invest in whatever you're going to invest in, but you do not invest in anything else, like no other course, no other coaching, whatever, until you do everything. So Six Figure Blogger took me I took the course, I don't know, finished it in a month or two. It took me an entire year to implement everything. I created 6 products that way, but I quadrupled my income. And that meant saying no to so many other coaching opportunities. And I'm doing the same thing this year with my mentor, Brooke Castillo at the Life Coach School. I am focusing only on learning entrepreneurship from her company for this year. Like anything else I want to do with any other coaches or programs, putting it off till 2020, because I think that you have to be really focused and committed to one program to get the results that you want before going on to the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that philosophy, because I think that like it's a lot of entrepreneurs get caught up in like, they call it like shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
You're basically just sitting here like bouncing around, like from mentor to mentor, from program to program, from class to class. And it's like, you have to have like singular focus. And that's why, I mean, I give so much credit to like my mentor, because like from the very beginning, like of my company and launching the company, like I started with a business mentor. And so like the strategy from the very, very, very beginning, like I really didn't even have an opportunity to screw up in the beginning, because like we already had strategy in play. And obviously like I was in the field for like 8 years before I finally, wasn't scared anymore to jump. But like, it's just interesting. Like I think that like working with a coach, like you have to like trust the process. Like you have to do what the person that you hired is telling you to do.
You really do. It's so funny because we just get in our own way and we think we like know better, or that doesn't make sense. But I just think that if, choose wisely, right? Choose from the leaders in your industry and make sure they have the results that you want, and then listen to them and do what they say. Even if you're kind of resistant towards it, just trust them. You chose them, trust that they know more, and implement it and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So let's dive into, a few of the things that we were kind of planning on. Here we are. I love the flow. I think it's so much more organic there. But I do want to dive into some of obviously you talk on like a whole bunch of different, like really just like personal development and like success. And like, for us, like we've talked about this whole time, we became, really obsessed with like personal development. And I think it's because like we've realized that like we only get one shot at this life, we only get one opportunity. And so I would love to dive into like, what are some like, maybe, somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, I would love to be more productive. Like I would love to have a better mindset. I would love to like I feel stuck, right? So what are some like productivity tips that like you could offer up to maybe just like really just get some people like maybe, I don't know, for better or worse, like off the couch and like get them to realize that like, dude, you got one shot, like go live.
Yeah. So I think the first thing would be to start your day off with something that is motivating or inspiring. Pick like a handful or fewer podcasts that you want to subscribe to, and every day just start your day with a podcast episode. And that I think in and of itself is transformational. Instead of coming home and turning on reruns of The Office, like leave the TV off. You know what I mean? You would be amazed at how like sneaky your environment can be with affecting like how you live your life. And then like for a practical productivity tip, my favorite one is to start scheduling like results on your calendar. So let's say that you want to start a business, and part of that means like you have to start this website, you have to get clients, like social media, all that stuff. In your calendar, block out the time that you're going to use I don't know, like 2 to 4 p.m. or something, and put from 2 to 4 p.m. exactly what you expect to produce during that time. So instead of saying like work on business, you would say write one blog post, like take 2 pictures for Instagram, and like email my subscribers. But whatever it is, you want to put exactly what results you expect in the time block, and you want to jam pack it more with with so much that you think you might not even be able to get it done. And that you would think that doesn't make sense, but it's counterintuitive, but it works. So if you have 5 things that you know you're going to get done in a certain amount of time, you will be so on fire and energized, and you'll sit down and you'll do it, and you won't allow yourself to like indulge in working on your business. So I used to like go to coffee shops and spend like a Saturday afternoon blogging. And I was kind of, I would just go from 12 to 5, let's say, and I would just sip my coffee, kind of be on social media, write a blog post, like, and you're like kind of, there's a little element of self-pity there because it's like a Saturday and you're like getting your Starbucks treat, and you know what I mean? And I might finish the day like writing 1 blog post. Compare that to like, okay, I'm going to write 1 blog post. I'm going to get my Pinterest image. I'm going to take an Instagram picture. I'm going to email my subscriber list, and having this massive action list of to-do items that I expect to produce during that time, and then going there and just cranking out that work, but making sure I have a stop time so that like that Saturday evening, I'm not working at all. I think if you measure productivity based on results instead of like the activity, it's a total game changer.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. We talk about that a lot, like time blocking. And a lot of people don't know what like time blocking is. Yeah. And it's like, all that is just planning ahead and setting yourself up for like a successful, productive week.
Yes.
But, I completely agree. I think that like there's a difference in just like time blocking this period of time and not actually planning what you're actually going to get accomplished in the time block. Because, I think for some people, like, they'll be like, okay, well, I'm planning out my day or I'm planning out my week, and maybe I set all of these things and then I just get like handicapped by that. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I have all this stuff to do, and then they just don't do anything. And so it's like, you just need to identify like, maybe it's 10 things, or maybe it's 5 things, or maybe it's 3 things, or maybe it's the one thing that you need to make sure that you get done to kind of move yourself forward.
Yeah. And I just want to say that like, when the time comes to do it, you're probably not going to want to do it. And that's okay. Like anytime you have to transition from Saturday morning coffee to like getting stuff done, like you're going to have some resistance, and that doesn't mean anything. You can just say, oh yeah, I don't really want to do this, but like, I'm going to show up for myself because I planned on it and I care about my business and I care about the outcome. So I'm just going to do it anyways. So I always kind of expect for and plan for that resistance when I'm about to transition into whatever the next thing is, and just do it anyways.
I love that mentality. That's the entrepreneur in you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. No, I think that's a great tip for sure. So on that time block kind of subject, like the thing I love about it is when we get to Sunday, right, and we go to like plan out the next week, we can review over the previous week, and it really starts to become like very binary, like black and white. It's like, this is the stuff that got done in this week. And so as we hear from so many people, I've obviously been guilty of it, but it's like, I'm so busy, and it's like, okay, well, like, let's dive in and like, let's identify like how busy you actually are, because we all have 24 hours in a day. We all have 7 days in a week, but yet some people are extremely productive and other people just aren't.
Yeah, I think you really have to be clear about your priorities. So like, it's such a unique time in like the evolution of humans that we literally have more options than ever. Like there are like, and that's not going away. Like I have so many opportunities, and not just because my business, like in my life. And so do you, so does everyone listening to this. Like the amount of things you're invited to and can do and can put on your calendar, like it can be overwhelming. So you have to prioritize your own life and goals and vision. And it's kind of like, okay, what's the vision, right? You want that $2 million business, and you want a family, right? And you want to be healthy, whatever like the main things are, and then work backwards, right? And then you fill in your calendar with how you're going to make that happen for yourself. and then add things that other people invite you to second. And I think we tend to do it like the opposite way, and like saying yes to all these things. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Looking at the calendar, the next month is so full. And I'm really ruthless about making sure I always schedule at least 2 weeks out. So if I get an invite to do something within a 2-week time frame, I'm like, nope, it's a no. I'm like, oh, I scheduled 2 weeks out. It's just a fact. So I always have my calendar up in the background. I'm constantly looking at it, and I'm constantly making sure every morning I'm like, okay, what am I producing today? What am I producing today? And I still have my evenings free, right? And that's new this year, but I'm like working out. I go to like this bougie gym in Chicago. I'm cooking more. And so I have those things on my calendar too. And that's what actually gives me the freedom to live my life exactly how I want, is being rigid with how much I plan, because you plan the downtime too. And that's like what gives you that balance, or make sure you're on purpose with your vision for your life and not someone else's.
Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. Like you brought up like in that, like such a great point, and that's prioritizing yourself, right? Which like so many people, like we work with a lot of females, a lot of moms, right? That like really feel guilty about prioritizing themselves. And I think that like, it's so incredibly important, but like what you just talked about was not only time blocking like your work, like here you are a very successful entrepreneur, but also time blocking like and prioritizing yourself, right? Like going to the gym, like your mental health, like just being happy and like making this entrepreneur, this career, this business that you've always dreamed of, like actually making and creating like the life that kind of goes along with it. Because I mean, we could sit here and become an entrepreneur and like make all this money and all of these things, but like if we're not happy, then why does it even matter?
Yeah, you have to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, right? You can't think that happiness is over there, right? You're like as happy now as you ever will be. And I always think like, you're always going to have problems too. So problems don't go away when you make $1 million. They're just different problems. And I think realizing that kind of gives you freedom to just be happy now and like let the problems kind of happen as they will, and still have those goals. And I think one other thing that you said that I want to touch on is the mom thing. So I don't have kids yet, but there are so many entrepreneurs out there, female entrepreneurs who are moms. And I see this a lot with moms who want to start businesses or who are newer and they're not making enough money yet. And they have this like limiting belief that because they have kids, like they can't prioritize their family and be successful as an entrepreneur. And I just want to say that's 100% not true. And I think that if anyone's listening that who is a mom who kind of struggles with those beliefs, find entrepreneurs online who are doing it. Like there's one coach I always refer people to. She is a Mormon mom. She targets like Mormon moms in her business as well. And she is a life coach, and she's got 4 kids. She works 3 days a week, and she's got $1 million business, and she works from home. And her name's Jody Moore. So I think if you go to jodymoore.com, she has a podcast. But anyways, I just think that like when I see that, it's hard for me to convey it. It's like, oh, well, you don't have kids. It's like, well, actually, I know so many coaches, I would say 90% of the coaches who are in Brooks Life Coach School, they are all mostly women, and most of them have kids. So I always want to say that for the moms, that like you can totally do it too. And it doesn't mean that you can't create a business where you prioritize your family and are working 3 days a week. It's totally possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that like we just live it's 2019. Like we live like we're living through like an amazing time right now. And like, I think that like there's so many people out there that still to this day, like this is such like a foreign land for so many people. So, I think as this online coaching space keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, like you're starting to see more and more people finally like take the leap. But like, it's hard. Like it's not easy. Like there is a struggle. There's ups, there's downs. Like, I always talk about it. It's like you just kind of like bob and weave, roll with the punches, right?
Good. It's so true. I think also you can tell that you're really in love with like serving and helping people. And I think that that's like the foundation, right? Like there's nothing that could come my way that would make me like quit this. So I do want the work-life balance. I do want to have kids. I do want to limit how much I work, but I'm still in love with the process. I'm not just doing it for all the benefits, for the perks, for the money, for the time off. And what I see people doing is they'll do it because they want more money, and they'll do it because they want to work less, but they're not actually in love with who they're serving and how they're serving. And they don't ever last because they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think that like I think to myself that whether it's nutrition coaching or whether it's whatever, like what I love doing is like helping other people.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
like that platform could extend to, whatever. So I love that. I love the episode. I love the interview. Thank you so much for taking the time. I could probably sit here and talk to you all day long and ask you questions, but I know you're super busy. I want to respect your time. But where can people find you? Obviously, I know you have a podcast, you have a website, social media. Where can everybody find you?
My website's the easiest place to find me. It's nataliebacon.com. And my podcast is Design Your Dream Life. So if you just look that up in iTunes or wherever, Design Your Dream Life, you can check out my podcast.
I love it. Awesome.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think that this is going to be a great kind of segue as we start to dive more into the entrepreneur realm for the podcast. So I am super excited, and I think that everybody definitely make sure that you, if you didn't take a notepad out and write down notes for this, rewatch it. And I got so much value out of it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
Awesome. I'm going to get us out of here and then